In October of 2012, Deadline Hollywood broke the scoop that Arnold Schwarzenegger would return to star in the long-awaited King Conan movie from Universal Pictures titled Legend of Conan. That movie never happened. While Arnold Schwarzenegger remains keen on wanting to return to Conan, Universal has in the intervening years relinquished the Conan movie rights, forever ending any chance that particular movie had of getting made. In an exclusive long-form interview with Midnight's Edge, Frederick Malmberg, the keeper of the Conan legend and would-be producer on that movie, gave a look into what transpired behind the scenes of Legend of Conan, who was in consideration to direct, why the movie never happened, and if Arnold Schwarzenegger could still return to what is perhaps his most iconic role.
After the Millennium film, I was thinking, okay, we should probably think about a series here. And because Game of Thrones was up and running, and now we could see that that's probably a better medium. But I had a series of meetings with Jeff Kirschenbaum over at Universal, and he said, here's the thing. People want Conan as a feature film, but they want Arnold to be Conan. And his career was not like 100% at the time. And so Jeff, probably rightly so, he said, well, there's still a big contingent of people who want to see Arnold in certain roles. And one of his most iconic performances is Conan. So people will come back to see Arnold in Conan. And I liked that. I was struggling with, but shouldn't we do a series instead? But especially back then, we're in 2012, 2011. Then it was still very much attractive to see a big blockbuster movie first, and then you can follow up with TV. And that's how you used to do it in those days. In the past, that's how it was always. So we met with the team over at Universal and Arnold, and we all kind of shared. It was Chris Morgan, one of the top writers there, who came in, and he basically, at a breakfast meeting with Arnold, he pitched the movie scene by scene. And he's just the greatest pitch maker. It was the greatest story, and the underlying story actually was taking elements from David Gemmel's Legend, which was a fantasy book in the 80s, which was very, very popular back then, which basically was an older Conan, the champion that has gone off to the mountain and basically is drawn back into battle. So great story, but then things are very difficult because you have to get a script together. And just as we got the script, and there were the business affairs among the studios can take months to conclude deals with not just the rights holders, but with writers and actors, and especially writers. And the writers can't wait. So if business affairs takes 3 months to negotiate with one writer, and then he needs work, and then he's off running something else. So we were struggling to find the right concoction there on the script. And the day the first draft of the script, not the first draft, but the day the studio draft, the one that the producers will give to the studio, was finished, that was the same week as Jeff Kirschenbaum announces that he was leaving Universal. And he was the champion behind the project there. And they had one more year left on the option. And at that point, it was sort of, we were left without an executive, without a champion in there. And then it was really up to Chris Morgan, who's a producer, but is also extremely busy writing all their big Fast and Furious movies and overseeing, he was overseeing the whole Dark Universe. It was very difficult for him to focus on. And by the way, after the deal was done, it turned out he didn't write the script. Someone else was going to write the script, and he would oversee it. So we were hampered by classic studio problems. I wouldn't call it development hell, but that last year was development hell, because then we were just waiting out for the option to expire. And we brought in a couple of directors, and I'm very happy to say that we actually brought in some really great guys before they really scored high. But the movie didn't happen there. And then we got
Can you tell us who, can you say who some of those directors who were in contention were?
Well, I mean, we had, of course, the issues. You have agents for people, and then you have agents even for, in this case, it was going to be Arnold. And before people are really famous, then the town will be a little bit, how do you say it? They'll be hesitant because nobody really wants to make a judgment based on what they see themselves. They like to sort of see, well, this guy is hot right now. Let's go to that guy or that guy. But I think for me, the one name that, or the one person that I thought was the most interesting was Miguel Sapochnik, because he had done, we could see, I met him and he was on Game of Thrones, right? And he directed the Battle of the Bastards episode, which subsequently won an Emmy, but he had not won the Emmy then. So they thought of him, and he had been, people thought of him as a TV director. But if you watch the Battle of the Bastards episode from Game of Thrones, and you just basically say, well, that is Conan. He's basically fighting himself up a pile of corpses here. So that was, I was very excited about Miguel, but that was late in the option, and it was too late. And also, of course, we haven't even touched the subject of, well, what about the rating? Without a executive defending the whole project, would a studio like Universal be able to do an R-rated movie, and who would do this? So I think it was, the whole town was kind of thinking that if the executive has left, this is going to be a dead project, a lame duck kind of. But I do think that Miguel could have been an amazing director for Conan there.
Yeah, and on top of that, Terminator Sega Genesis, as I like to call it, also flopped right around that time, and that probably didn't do any wonders either.
I mean, here's the thing is I think Jeff was right when he said, well, Arnold may not be successful in all these other movie projects, but people want to see him in Conan. I think he's right there, and I think there is something with the Conan role, or the Conan character, which actually is very appealing to Arnold. I think with Conan, he's playing himself. I really, really have this, feeling that, he's coming from that background in the Alps, and he's bullied as a kid, and he builds himself up, and he becomes Mr. Universe, and then, he becomes the biggest action star. Then he becomes the governor. To me, there is a very big component of Conan in Arnold's own personal life. And I think as an actor, when you're in a later stage of your career, you're tapping more into you're not playing so much a role as you're playing yourself. And I think Jeff was right in that analysis, and I would love to find a way where we collaborate with Arnold again, because it's just painful when you're sitting there from between 2012 up until, I don't know, 2016 or 2017, and the years go by, and you're just sitting in, it just, that's the frustration of movie making, that these projects take so long to come to fruition.
As you can hear, Fredrik Malmberg, who by way of Cabinet Entertainment is the ultimate owner of the Conan the Barbarian IP, and the entire Robert E. Howard library at large, does not close the door on Arnold reprising Conan in some capacity. The next Conan project is a high-end series currently in development over at Netflix. To hear what Malmberg had to say about that, check out the full long-form interview that this clip was taken from. To make sure you stay up to date on all things Conan, including future developments on the Conan series that is being developed at Netflix, hit subscribe, indicate you want notifications on all videos. And before you go, let us know your thoughts on The Legend of Conan That Never Was in the comments.